In this class, I want to discuss about the try and finally. Try and finally. So, if you are using the try, there is a compulsory exception handling is there. Whether that exception handling is the catch or that whether exception handling is the finally. So in this class, I want to discuss about the try and finally. So always you know that try is the exception. Finally can specify, it can execute the important code which is preserved in the finally. Okay, so first fundamental thing is that the finally code block contains the important code that must and should be executed. Okay, this is the main fundamental, first point. Second point, there are different conditions are there. Number one, suppose if there is a no exception. Suppose if there is a no exception. So that means there is a no problem. If there is a no problem, then first that instruction is executed, then next it is goes to the finally, because there is no exception. Alternatively, it directly execute the finally instruction. Once the finally is executed, then the rest of the code is executed. This is the first thing. I repeat, there are two conditions are there. Number one, first condition is that whether exception is there or not. If there is no exception, then that instruction executed, and next the finally code is executed. This is the first point. Second point is that suppose if there is an exception, again there are two conditions are there. Number one, if there is an exception handling or no exception handling. Suppose exception is there, then if there is a no exception is handling, even though then the final code is executed and not the rest of the code is executed, because you are not handling the exception code. You are not handling the exception. So that is the first point. Second point, suppose exception is there, you are taking the exception handling, then exception handling is executed, and finally, dear students, please mute your phone. Dear students, please mute your phone. Dear students, please mute your phone. Okay, there is a disturbance created. Please mute your phone. Okay, suppose exception is there, then there is exception handling is there. So then what happens if there is an exception handling, then rest of the code should be executed along with finally code is also executed. Okay, so on the conclusion of all these things, finally block code compulsory executed, whether exception there, no exception, or exception no handling, exception handling. Even though in all these situations, the finally code is executed. Okay, so this is our flow chart. This is our flow chart. Okay, let us take. Okay, see this. This is the flow chart of the finally block. So let us take, this is called a program code. So what I'm saying is, first one, exception is there or no exception. So first condition, if there is a no exception, then immediately it can execute this instruction. This is the finally block. Second thing, exception is there. If there is an exception, there are two chances are there. One is exception handling and no exception handling. So this is no exception handling. Then immediately it should execute. Suppose if there is an exception and next one exception handling is there, then first it can execute the exception handling, then it is execute the finally block. So on conclusion of all these things, whether there is an exception or not exception, finally block code is compulsory executed. That's why it is called as important code is executed. important code is executed. That should be keeping in the finally. At any such circumstances, this code is executed. This code is executed. Okay, right. So let us take the first one. So please see this, what I'm saying in the previous one. Finally, block A, which contains the important coding, whether exception takes place or not exception takes place. If exception with no handling, exception with handling, whatever it may be, then the finally code should be executed. Ultimately, whenever you are using the finally block in the program, that should be executed. Okay, this is a very, very important thing, right? Next, let us take the first condition. What is the first condition? Let us take, this is a exception, try. Try is a exception. So let us take, already mentioned that try and catch or try and finally you can use. Let us take 25 by 5. So this is the properly utilizing the variables and instruction. So then there is no exception. If there is a no exception, then the next instruction is executed. What is next instruction? System.out data. So what is the data value? 5. Okay, so here the first condition, no exception. Then, so if there is exception, then exception handling should be takes place. So here there is no exception. So that's why what happens, it is not executed. The catch is not executed, and then it is the finally is executed. What is the finally block contain? System.out println. This is the important block. So this is the important block. Then it should execute it. Finally block is always executed. And the next, once it is executed, then what is the next one? System.out println next code. So here there is no exception. If there is no exception, why should we handle the exception? So then the finally should be executed, and next rest of the code is executed. So then check that. So let us take exception. There is no exception, though, that's why it is executed. Then, so if there is no exception, directly goes to finally. So what is the finally? Final block is always executed. So this is compulsory executed. And next one, what is the rest of the code is executed. So no exception, finally, and rest of the code. Everything is executed here. Okay. Now, let us go for the next condition. Suppose the next condition is exception is there with no handling. Exception with no handling. So this is a code. So let us take what happens. Okay, so let us take what is this value? Data is equal to 25 by 0. 25 by 0 is the arithmetic exception. If there is an arithmetic exception, the next code is not executed. The next code is not executed. That is the system.out println data is not executed because there is a problem. So now, if there is an exception, but no handling, because this is the no handling, because you are using the null pointer, but this is the arithmetic exception. So no exception is handling is there. Then you can use the finally. What is the finally? So finally system.out, this can be executed and the rest of the code is executed. Okay, it is just like similar to the no exception with finally and exception with no handling. Either both are, everything is equal. So let us take check. I repeat, here there is an exception. If there is an exception, then it will not produce output. So then it is search for the exception handling. But what is the handling? Catch. But this is the mismatch because this is the arithmetic exception, but you are saying that null point exception. That means you are not handling. You are not handling. So then what happens, even though in such condition, exception with no handling, it is directly goes to the finally and rest of the code is executed. So let us take what happens. So see this. So you are getting only finally block is always executed. Why? Why you are not getting the rest of the code? Because exception is there, but exception is not handled. If you are not, exception is not handled, rest of the code is not executed, but finally code is executed. That's what I'm saying here. Okay, now let us take, suppose I want to change this exception name. So I want to remove, then can you see that what is the output? Now let us take, this is the exception, and next one, exception is handling. If the exception is handling, then what happens? The finally code is executed, and next one, rest of the code is also executed. So just to see what is the difference between exception handling and no exception handling. So see this. Yeah, see this? Here, exception is handled. What exception? Arithmetic exception. So it is given the right by 0. Next, finally is executed. Next, what is the important? The rest of the code is also executed. So that's why please be remembered that if there is an exception, then corresponding exception is handled. So once the exception handling is there, then the rest of the code is also executed. If you are not exception handle, then rest of the code is not executed. This is a very, very important. Okay, see this. So in previous, what I'm saying, there is a mismatch. There is a mismatch. What is a mismatch? This is arithmetic, but you are saying a null pointer. You are saying a null pointer. There is a mismatch. So exception is not handled. If the exception is not handled, even though final block is executed, but the rest of the code is not executed. That's a very important. Exception, handling, rest of the code executed, and final. So see this, what happens. In previous, you are getting the one. So that's why only the final block is executed. That's the important. In any such circumstances, the final code is executed. This is a very, very important. Okay, let's go for the next example. Case 3. What is the case 3? Exception, exception handling, then finally, and the rest of the code. 4 steps are the exception, exception handling, final code, and the rest of the code execution. So let us take, this is called 25 by 0, arithmetic exception. What is the exception handling? Arithmetic exception. So this is an arithmetic exception handling which takes place. Then what is the advantage? Next, final code is executed and the rest of the code is also executed. Check this, just like the previous one. See this. So first one, exception handling is there. Second one, final block is executed. And the next one, rest of the code is also executed. So this is a very important thing. That is the finally. So ultimately you can conclude that, finally block is executed in any critical conditions, whether you are handling the exception, not handling the exception, or without exception. In any such circumstances, final block is executed. But what about the rest of the code? That depends upon the exception handling. If no exception handling, final block is executed, but no further rest of the code is not executed. If the exception is handled, rest of the code is also executed. This is a very, very, very important. Okay. So in the subject point of view. Okay. Even though, see this is the one important thing. For each try block, there can be 0 or more catch blocks. But ultimately, what is our ultimate funda? In any such circumstances, final block is executed. It is the main funda. So if you are using any try block, any catch block, but only one final block is executed. Only one final block. Okay. Okay. Next one. So this is about the final. Try final. Okay. Now can you check one example? Let us take one more thing. Suppose what happens? I am completely removing the try block, but I am placing the only final block, exception handling and final block. What is your expected answer? I think you will get some wrong answer. There is an error. Why? Because single catch you are not supposed to use. Single catch you are not supposed to use. You can always use the try and catch, but I am not using the try and catch. Okay, so let us take. That's why I can include it here. Suppose if I am deleting the both try and catch, that leads to no exception. And what happened? I can check. We can check. We can check. Here, there is no try. So that's why no single final block is used. So that means you can always use try and finally or try catch finally. Okay, so let us take one more example. Let us take one more example, Roger. Suppose I can remove the catch. Control X. I can remove the catch. Can it execute or not? Yes. Executed. Executed. But what happened? Rest of the code is not executed. Rest of the code is not executed because problem is there, exception is there, but no handling. So please be remember one important thing is that exception, then the handling is there. If you are performing the handling, then rest of the code is executed. If you are not performing the handling, exception handling, no further execution. There is no use. There is no use. So, but what is important of the try and finally? Try is exception, but final block is executed. So to perform the finally, you can use either try, catch, finally, or try and finally. Okay, this is a very important thing. Next. So now I want to discuss about the throw. Throw. So because what are the keywords are there? Try, catch, throw. Okay, throw can throw the exception. What is the procedure we want to discuss right now? Right, what is that? Java throw keyword is used to explicitly throw an exception. Completely throws. Okay, completely throws the exception. Okay, so in previous what happened? Exception handling. But here what happened? It can throw the exception. So let us take what happens. See this. We can throw either checked or unchecked exception in Java by throw keyword. Okay, right. The throw keyword is mainly used to throw the custom exception. Okay, right. Let us take what happens. Okay, let us go for the throw. Okay, see this. See this. Suppose this is a problem. If age is less than 18, if age is less than 18, let us take this is the method. This is the method, and this is called the argument, and this is the main method. So this is the method. What is the main method? Validate is a method. Validate is a method. So in the method, you are checking that if age is less than 18, then throw arithmetic not valid. It can throw the val. Okay, and the rest of the code is executed. Suppose if it is now, if the condition true, then it can execute. So here, what is the throw? If condition fails, that is the throw. That is the exception that can be thrown. If there is no throw, then directly execute. Okay, so let us take you are sending the 13 years. So whether age is less than 18, yes, because age is equal to 13. 13 is less than 18. Exception is there. If there is exception, it can throws. If it is throws, then rest of the code should be executed. Just try what is the output. Okay, so then what happens? It is not execute the rest of the code. It is not, rest of the code is not executed because it just throws, but not execute the rest of the code. Now, suppose if I want to change the condition, suppose 19, then what happens? So, exception, it can, there is no exception, then what happens? It will give the rest of the code should be executed. So what is the importance of the throw? Just throw exception. Just throw the exception. Okay, just throw the exception. Yes. Series. What is the syntax? What is the syntax? So what is the syntax? This is the throw new IO exception. So this is the exception. Okay, but it can just throw the exception, then it is not handle the exception. It can just throw the exception, enough. Okay, but it cannot handle the exception, just throw, whether checked or not checked, then it can just throw the exception, enough. Okay, all right. So this is called as a, so then just throws exception, not valid, enough. So it can throw the exception. So let us say, all right. So main, throw one validate, throw Java 5. So it throws one main, test throw Java 11. Okay, just it can throw, enough. Next one. I think you don't have the Java exception program. It is a propagation. So see this, what is the propagation? Okay, so here it is not necessary right now. Then we can go for the okay. Okay, it is not necessary right now. So that means what he is saying that the throw, then exception is not propagated. So the describe that checked exceptions are not propagated. Exceptions are not propagated. So suppose if there is exception is then throws, then it is not propagated. It is not propagated. Okay. Next throws keyword. It is also somewhat okay. Yeah, this is somewhat. So it can propagate. That's the difference. So example, Java throws a clause which describes that checked exception can be propagated by throws. In previous, checked propagation cannot be propagated by the throw, but here throws can be propagated. Now what happens? Check. Suppose this is called as a method throws IO exception, then it can propagate. IO operation not permitted. IO operation is not permitted. Okay, device error, IO exception. Okay, so device error throws IO exception. Okay, right. That means it can specify, throws can specify there is a problem. Okay, and the next one, okay, it is not rightness. So this is the brief idea about the try, catch, finally, throw, and throws. Clear? So now in this class, I want to discuss a one more important topic that is called as a connecting. Okay, connecting in Java. So connecting. Okay, I can discuss one important topic: connection. Connections in Java. Okay, let us take. I want to share. Stop the share, and I want to share the. Yes, this is one. Okay, all right. So the first thing, as per your syllabus, he is discussing about the connections. Connections in Java. What is the connection? what is the connection. Suppose, let us take in your bank account, uh, there is some money is there, money is there. Suppose another customer want to transfer some money to you, to your account. Account holder is different and sender is different. But the sender can send the amount to the another account holder. Then after entering the data, our amount is credited, that should be developed, that should be increased. So account credit amount is credited to your account and your balance should be increases. How it is possible? So how it is possible? So that is called as a account holder having a database. Account holder having the database. In the database, I want to make the connection. I want to make, suppose Andhra Bank to State Bank. Andhra Bank to State Bank. Andhra Bank is different, State Bank is different. But from Andhra Bank to State Bank, you want to transfer the amount. So what is the first step? There you should create a connection from these two banks, bank to bank, first point. Second point, once your connection is there, then there is a opening your account. After connection, then opening your account and amount is credited. That means file is open. Once the file is open, then you want updated the information. After updated the information, that should be closed. Okay, so this is the process in the connection. So that means you can access the database of the others. Okay, you should access other account, other database. So that means you can perform certain action and to perform certain actions on the database available on the database. Okay, that means what are the steps are there? That means I repeat, what is the database? JDBC stands for Java Database Connection. JDBC. So actually it is available in the syllabus, connection in Java. What is the advantage of the Java connection? Connection stands for you should create a path. Okay, so by the application, according to your application can be performed available data in the database. Performing the application is performed according to the data available on the database. This is the main important concept of the Java database connection. So simply connection. Okay, so what are the different types of JDBCs are there? Okay, all right. First, I want to discuss about before that, I want to discuss API. What is the API? Application Programming Interface. Application Programming Interface. So this is the very important thing, API. So please read this. Is a document that contains a description of all the features of the product and software. Okay, so this is the API. So Java API is there, which can specify that is a document that contains a description of all the features of the product. So now I want to use this API, Java API. So this is the application. So application is performed. For the application is performed, then you require data. So data is available two ways. Either you can use the data or you can perform some other data available in the database. Okay, available in the database, just like the bank account. Okay, so you want to credit your amount into your own account is a direct one. But what happened? Transfer amount from one bank to another bank. So that's why you should action. What is action? Deposit. Action, deposit. So for that, what happened? Create a connection. So that's why you should access the database of the others, and according to the data available on the database, an application should be performed. This is called as a database connection. For this, we can use the Java API. So API, I repeat, what is the API? Application Programming Interface is a document. So then that contains a description. So similarly, it is already described long ago. String API, class API, threads API, so many APIs are there. So application programming interface. So string API stands for which can having the, what are the different types of strings are there, what is the procedure, everything is available in the strings API. So it is already method, already created. Okay, already classes are created, which is having the string API. Okay, all right. So an API can be created for the applications, libraries, and operating system. All right. So now, why we are studying this connection? So already explained that to perform certain action, available data on the database. That database may be the users or others or whatever it may be. You should create a certain steps are there. That is the main fundamental of the Java database connection. Okay. All right. So suppose this is the basic level, so that's why we should understand some basic steps and what are the different ideas are there. But programming, it is somewhat difficult in this level. So just we can study the basics. Okay, next. So now JDBC. So in the examination, suppose he's asking the what is the connection in Java, then you can write about the JDBC. Don't confuse. Don't confuse because it is performing the connection by using the Java. So that's why JDBC stands for Java database connectivity. J Java, D database. Okay, DB stands for database, C stands for connectivity. Okay, all right. So let us take what is the next point. JDBC is a Java API to connect and execute the query with the database query. Query stands for you can perform certain action. Okay, that action. Suppose you want to know the balance, you want to know the fixed deposits. This is the action. Suppose you want to withdraw, you want to credit. This is the certain actions. This is the API action. So I'm just giving the example, but the actions. So Java actions, that is called the Java API can specify certain data from the database. So Java JDBC is a API to connect and execute the query with the database. Okay, so let us take the best example is the railway reservation. Whatever it may be, where is the database, you can do the action from the database. Where is the database? Database stands for it contains certain data. That data may be related to you or related to the company, related to the system, okay, related to experiment and related to whatever it may be. It contains certain data. You can use that data. You can use that data. Okay, so that is called that data may be tabular data stored. Recently, we are discussing about what is the COVID-19 status. So worldwide, national-wide, district-wide, regional-wide, what is the status? So that means somebody can search the data and they can keep in a certain space. So then by applying the connectivity, you should access the data. What is the status? Whether it is increasing. So once you are observing the data, then you can conclude it, whether it is increasing, decreasing, whatever it may be. So that's why wherever there is a database stands for it can store a data can be preserved in a specific place in a memory. That memory may be the hard disk or cloud or server or anything. Okay, you can access the data from the database and you can take certain access point of. So you can perform certain action. So that's why, see, we can use the database JDBC API to access tabular data stored in any relational database. Okay, next, JDBC is a part of the Java SE Standard Edition, JSE, Java Edition. Okay, we can save. So what are the things to be taken? Suppose what is the use? What is the use? Okay, that means first you can open, create a connection, open, and access, read, and then close. So that's why the steps are there. We can save. Save stands for suppose you want to deposit amount. So after depositing, then you can save. So save. Next, this is called as an updation. First you can check. First you can fetch. Then update. After update, you can save. Then or you can delete. You can delete. So that is once a connection is over, you can delete. So that is you are not supposed to continuously make the connection. That is called as a delete. So the first one fetching, next one updating. That updating means you are crediting or you are reading or whatever it may be. And next you can save. So then once you save, then what happens? You should delete that connection. So if you not delete the connection, then it is continuously over. Okay, that's why the bank can specify a specific time. Within the specific time, if you are not closing, then default it can be closed. Okay, so there are so many problems created by using the disconnection, without disconnection of the connection. So that's why this is the delete. Similarly, in the ATM, ATM is also, suppose if you are find out your balance, then you are not performing up to the 2 minutes, that is, then the watchdog timer can set the time 2 minutes. Suppose if the time is over, then your transaction should be cancelled out. Okay, so this is the best example of the ATM and bank account or any database, any data. Clear? So suppose before JDBC, they are using the, suppose, ODBC. This can be provided by Microsoft, Open Database Connection, Open Database Connection, which is provided by Microsoft. Then this is written in the C language. This is written in the C language. Okay. So now you have the certain idea. JDBC stands for Java Database Connection. Why? To access the data from the database. So to access the data from the database, what are the steps that takes place? That will give the connection. So in this one, first you should make the connection. What are the activities are there? What are the activities are there? First is connect to database. Second thing is execute queries and update the statements to the database. Okay, then retrieve the result received from the database. So these are all the activities of the JDBC. Next, what are the different types of drivers are there? So because suppose if you are using the any audio or any new software, then you can load the drivers. You can load the drivers. Simply for loading any software, you should use the drivers. Similarly, to access the database, then there is different types of drivers are required. If there is no drivers, then that system is not compatible. That is not compatible. So for the compatible, if it is a compatible, then it is easy to access. So that's why the first step is the drivers. What are the different types of drivers are for the JDBC? Okay, so let us take JDBC driver is a software component that enables Java application to interact with the database. That's what I'm saying here. How many drivers are there? There are mainly 4 types of drivers are there. Number 1, JDBC ODBC driver, native driver, network protocol driver, and thin driver. Thin driver. So according to the availability and loading the driver positions, these are all 4 categories are there. JDBC, ODBC driver, this is the old one. Okay, next is the native driver. Next is the network protocol driver. Next is the thin driver. Without driver, so already clearly given that. So if there is no driver, you are not interact. So he said that if there is a driver, you can interact. Application can be interact. If there is no driver, you are not connect. Okay, right. So next, what is the procedure? So that's me. I already mentioned that this is the JDBC active. What is the first step? Connect to the database. So this is called as a API, Application Program Interface. Okay, so please see that interface stands for 2 devices, just 2 devices from my device to another device. This is the interface. So you can understand wherever you are going the interface, then you should specify, understand that interface stands for connection between two. So first one, from JDBC to what is the Java application? Okay, what is the Java application? So now, according to the application, first it can load the drivers. Driver can access the database. Once the driver is loaded, then the database is accepted. This is the path. This is the path. So here there is application. Then from this application, one of the application is accessed. Then you can load the driver. Okay, then you should access the database. So this is called as a connection establishment. This is called as a connection establishment. So now what is the time now? It is a 9:54. Okay, right. The first, okay, after discussing this, I want to close this session. So within the 5 minutes, I want to close this session. First one, JDBC. What are the four drivers are there? There are four types of drivers are there. One is the JDBC, ODBC driver. Okay, and the next one, native driver. Okay, native. Next one, network protocol driver, and next one, thin driver. First, I want to discuss about this. So this is the, so see this, this is the JDBC, ODBC bridge driver. What is the ODBC? Open Database Connection. What is JDBC? Java Database Connection. So that means ODBC can be written in the C language. So that means you are using the Java application. So this Java application driver can be converted into ODBC driver. Because in previous, ODBC driver can access the data. That means at the initial stage, we can access from the ODBC driver. But we are developing the JDBC. So that's fine. What is the first step? JDBC is converted into ODBC. Okay, right. So as previous, this is the JDBC API. And from this, you want to perform one application. And this is called as a client mission. This is our client. Okay, your client. So then JDBC to ODBC bridge driver. Okay, then this can convert from JDBC to ODBC driver. So once there is a ODBC driver, then what happened? Vendor database library. From the library, you access the database. So this is called, you can access from the database. This is the path creation. This is the procedure to access the JDBC, ODBC driver. First one, there are Java applications are there that can be provided by the API. From that application, one of the application you are accessing, okay, then you can use, this is the client mission, this is the client mission. In the client mission, what is the purpose? Because ODBC is a C language, but JDBC is a Java. So you should convert from JDBC, this is compatibility. So JDBC driver to the ODBC driver. Once a ODBC driver is there, then it should go to the library. Okay, then from the library, you can access the database. So and again retrieve back. So once you account open, then you can deposit or withdraw, or you can want to show no action, whatever it may be. Open, then check and update and close. Okay, once there is a close, then the path is disrupted. So this is disconnected. Okay, if you're not disconnecting, there is a problem. So your database should be changes. Once there is a database changes, suppose you have the 1 crore. Okay, if you are not delete the connection, then what happens? Somebody access, there is a modification. Okay, your amount will be 0. What is the updation? So withdrawing. So withdraw amount, then the what is the updation? So that is the 0 value. So then it should be corrected. So this is the main important. Wherever there is a database, then you should perform certain actions. By which method? By using the drivers. So what are the types of the drivers? First one is the JDBC, ODBC. JDBC is the Java based, ODBC is the C based. So that's why there is a compatibility between the JDBC and ODBC. So once the driver is installed, then we are going to the library and the database is there and you should access. Okay. So this is called as the first one. The JDBC ODBC bridge driver uses the ODBC driver to connect to the database. So driver convert the JDBC method calls into the ODBC function calls. This is now discouraged because this is the thin driver. So now in the Java 8 and JDBC and ODBC cannot be, and Oracle cannot be used the JDBC. This is the old version. What is the advantage? Easy to use, can easily connected in a database. But what is the problem? Performance degraded because JDBC method calls is converted into ODBC. Here there is a plus point and here is a minus point. Okay, needs to install on the client machine. So this is a brief introduction about the JDBC ODBC bridge. Okay, so now time is over. We will meet in the next class. Thank you. If you have any doubt, please send queries to my personal WhatsApp. Thank you.